So I've been running my vlog project for 5 weeks now, and I've had a whole heap of questions which I haven't been able to address in the comment section just because of academic life and whatnot. So I thought I'd collect all the answers together in one video, and hopefully this will be useful to people in the future. So I need to get through all of these in like 10 minutes, so let's go. Is it easy to socialise outside of college? To what extent are you bound to your college in terms of events / social activities? I think it depends on what you make of it. Like, I tend to socialise, I'd say with 90% of the people I socialise with are members of my college, purely because I don't do any activities on a university-wide scale which really encourage socialising. Like, if I was to do sport on a uni level, obviously I'd socialise with other members of my team or crew or whatever, but I just go to the gym and that's obviously a solitary activity. I play in a band, but we're not the kind of band that goes to the pub or anything afterwards. And also the fact that I do physics and we're not known as being a terribly social subject. Although, that said, I get along really well with a bunch of physicists from other colleges, and in particular, personally, me and the other girl from St Peter's get along really well with St Hilda's physicists, just because that's who we started sitting next to in lectures in first year. So, you know, there are people in other colleges that I personally socialise with, but I do most of my socialising and going out with people and whatnot from St Peter's. There are people who do much more university-wide scale, and those are the people that tend to do those things like sport on a uni-wide basis, or do like language courses, or the kind of things that mean you integrate with people from other colleges. There's certainly no stigma attached with doing that, it's kind of convenient to stick within St Peter's, plus we're the best college, so why would you want to go anywhere else? How stressful did I find adapting to Oxford life? In a word, ooh. Very. I'll stick with very. Basically, I mentioned in a previous video that my first term in Oxford was some of the worst weeks of my life, and there was a whole raft of reasons as to why that was. I think it was a mix of the whole being a big fish in a small pond going into a tiny minnow in an ocean, mixed with being in a long-term relationship that suddenly became a long-distance long-term relationship, and not being able to see my girlfriend all the time was difficult. Plus the sheer workload, in particular in first year, the workload was just cataclysmic. You know, it was a cataclysmic increase on what I was doing at A-level. Especially after such a long summer break. You know, you get a really long summer break between the end of year 13 and the start of your first year at uni. So it was a lot of factors at once that really almost cracked me. And I know that a lot of people have a very similar experience in their first term of struggling to adapt. But you do adapt, and some people do take it like a duck to water, and it's not something that should put you off applying. Like, yes, it is extremely stressful being here, but ultimately you need at some point to make that jump between sixth form or school and university and life more broadly, because life isn't like school. Life is more hectic, busier, and you need to adapt to that. And in a way, coming to Oxford or going to any of these prestigious universities that cause you to work all the time, getting a job after that's actually going to be a bit easy by comparison. It's going to feel easy. Are societies student run? If so, where do we get such professional lecturers? Yes, well, the Physics Society, which I presume you're talking about, is student run. We have a committee from all across the university. So our president, Emily, is from Queen's College. Our secretary is from St Peter's, as am I. I'm the head of publicity. Our social secretary is from Mansfield. We're a bunch of physicists from all across the years that were elected by our peers to run the society. And in terms of getting the lecturers, really, we just ask. I mean, we've had people like Roger Penrose in the past, Jocelyn Bell-Burnell, we had Stephen Blundell several times, including this week. These are just people that you email and hope. And if they say yes, then you'll fit them into the schedule. And if there's a lot of them say no, then you just move on. So, you know, we will send emails to these people, to people like Dara Breen and Jim Parsons and, you know, people like that are so out of our league, but if you don't ask, you don't get, basically. What does a common problem sheet look like? There's no such thing as a common problem sheet. Hang on. So this one is a second year electromagnetism problem sheet. To give you a rough idea, this is the second problem set of new material of the term. You've got, how many questions? 15 questions, though from memory I think we split this into 2 different weeks worth of work, so we did like 8 questions one week and 7 questions the next week. So the first part you've got like 4 questions of revision, 2 questions on magnetic dipoles, 4 questions on magnetizable material, 5 questions on magnetizable materials, and then a couple of questions at the end on electrodynamics. And you know, they vary. Sometimes you'll get a long question that's got lots and lots and lots of parts. Like an example on this one would be, you've got a uniformly charged sphere, what's the magnetic dipole along the moment of the sphere, approximate vector potential at the point, a particular point outside, a point inside, and then checking the boundary conditions between the two. So that's an example of a longer problem, but then at the same time on this, question 10 is just estimate the magnetic field needed to levitate a frog. It's because water's a paramagnetic material, and frogs are mostly water, as are we. I can't remember, actually, what was the answer off the top of my head? It's quite large. It's about 16 Tesla, apparently. But like I say, there's no such thing as a standard problem sheet. They can vary from like 7 to 8 questions to 30 questions, and you might not be asked to do all of it in a particular go. How hard was it meeting new people and making friends when you first started at uni? Now, I was extremely lucky with this. I think a lot of people go into their Freshers' Week with this mentality of, I must socialise or I will never have friends ever for the next 3 years. And it's like a socialise or die kind of attitude. But when I came to Oxford and came to St Peter's, I instantly felt so at home. You know, I brought so much of home with me. Like my parents had come up with me in the car, and we were crammed to the rafters with stuff that I never actually ended up using during the term. And yet I was dropped off by my parents, and I felt instantly at home in St Peter's. I was greeted by people in the higher years, so the upper years, and made to feel at home. Got learning people's names, helped other people move into their rooms, met people in the bar during the Freshers' Week events, and it felt kind of effortless, really. I never felt like I consciously had to, oh god, I need to make friends with this person, or I'm never going to have friends. It just kind of happens. I really didn't have any significant difficulties at all coming here in terms of making friends. I don't know if that's just a St Peter's thing. We are renowned for being the friendly college in the university, but I really didn't have any trouble. I'm very lucky to be able to say that. Am I more hard-working compared to the average Oxford student? I think quite possibly I work more hours than the average Oxford student. And by average, I mean that's across all sciences, all humanities, all years, all that. Because I definitely work less than a lot of people who are doing science subjects, particularly like a PhD level. I work more now than I did in, say, my 2nd or 3rd year, but less than I did in my 1st year, because in 1st year I worked too hard and I burned out. But to be honest, I think if I'm going to say that I work more hours than the average student, that's just because I need to, because I don't perceive myself as being as intelligent as the average physicist on the Oxford course. I feel like I need to put more work in order to get the right answers out. And that's what I'm here to do, so that's something I do. How do you not fall asleep while meditating? Seriously, do it first thing in the morning, after you've woken up and taken a shower, because that's the most awake you're ever going to be. But I still fall asleep. Oh my god, this is a long comment. Right, question 1. Discrimination against poor people? Not from the university or tutors in any way. I've never heard of anybody be discriminated against by their tutors or any authority position. The only time I've ever heard that happen is by, frankly, wankers who are rich and assume that all people are like them, but they're so few and far between. Like, in St Peter's, I've never had any trouble. I just hear the occasional story of that happening to people. It's definitely not something that's as widespread as people assume it is, thanks to the stereotype. Question 2, is the theology department overrun with Bible bashers? Would an atheist do alright? Well, of the theologians at St Peter's, we've had a mix of really hardcore atheist and really bells and smells Christian. I think it would be fair to say that the department is not overrun by religious types. There are obviously going to be a lot of religious people who would do the course, but an atheist would fit in absolutely fine, and there are plenty of people that I know personally who have done absolutely fine on the course, being either atheist or agnostic. Open days, are they any good? I don't actually remember going to an open day for Oxford, though I did go to open days for other unis and I found them very useful, because it's like collecting all the information that you could possibly want at once. With Oxford, I think it's more important to go around specific colleges' open days, and because you're going to know the course you want to apply to and all that kind of thing, but it's the college open day which you would want to go to, because that's what's going to decide your experience in Oxford. And by that I mean you should come to the St Peter's College open days. Are extras like your gown expensive? Well, really, in terms of stuff like subfusk that I mentioned in a previous video, you need to have a dark suit, and to be honest, by this stage in life, you'll need one when you go to uni, or just in life generally, like for weddings, funerals, whatever. So I'm not going to count that as an extra cost. You do need to buy your gown, cap, and white bow tie. I think if I remember rightly, the tailored people did a deal that was like 35 quid for all of that in one. And beyond that, I think that's all the extra stuff you need to get, actually. It's really not that expensive. Green flashes, how do they work? I don't really have the time to answer that in this video. Good question. Is intelligence enough to get in? No. I know plenty of intelligent people who would have got into Oxford and didn't, because they didn't put work in. Because ultimately, it's all well and good waltzing up to your interview and being incredibly intelligent, and they're going to be impressed by that. But unless you have the hard currency of your A-level grades and your GCSE grades to back it up, it's kind of like taking you on trust. Really, you need intelligence, but you also need the gumption to work. You need an attitude which lends itself to hard academic work, because that's what you need in order to survive here. So intelligence on its own is a prerequisite, but it's a necessary but not sufficient condition. Is life after uni surreal? Would you like to stay forever? Yes, please. Well, actually, I want to become an academic. My dream job is to become a lecturer. And in order to do that, I need to do a PhD, which necessitates staying for a couple more years, hopefully here. And then after that, attaching myself to different unis. The concept of leaving Oxford is something that I've obviously thought about a lot because I'm a final year student. But it's something that I know is going to come at some point. I have to leave Oxford, whether I graduate or die. And it's something which doesn't necessarily scare me that much. I really love the place, I really do. But I'm not a person that wants to spend the rest of my life in one place. You know, I want to see the world, I want to experience living in other countries and that kind of thing. So the idea of leaving Oxford isn't scary, but obviously it's a little bit sad. Because whenever you leave anything you love, it's always going to be sad. Room tour. I know, I'm a bad person, I'm sorry. I said I'd do a room tour. Right, okay. I said this week that on the internet that I would do a day in the life, and I did. So my challenge next week is to do a room tour, and I promise I will tidy my room beforehand, because at the moment you would not want to apply here based on my room. Seriously. Is that everything? I hope that's everything. That took forever.